The lie she let me live. There's a moment in every relationship where the mask slips, where something flickers behind the eyes, and for just 1 second, you see what you weren't meant to. I ignored that moment because I loved her. Or maybe I loved who I thought she was. Her name was Marissa Hale. She walked into my life like a summer storm, loud, sudden, impossible to ignore. The first time we met was in our junior year at Brenton University. She was seated 2 rows ahead of me in cognitive science, scribbling notes in this beat-up journal filled with chaotic diagrams and doodles. She wore headphones in class. Who even does that? And somehow never got in trouble. I noticed her. Of course I did. Everyone noticed Marissa. She wasn't just pretty. She was magnetic, sharp, funny, unapologetically bold. She once corrected a professor mid-lecture and was right. I was quiet, focused. I had a 3.9 GPA, held a TA position, and spent weekends tutoring high school kids to pay for textbooks. I was building a future. No distractions. And then Marissa smiled at me. "You always look like you're solving a murder," she said, leaning against my library table one afternoon. I blinked up at her. "Excuse me." "Your face," she said. Serious. Concentrated. "Murder, why?" "I like it." She slid into the seat across from me without asking. That was Marissa. She didn't wait for permission. She was permission. A week later, we were dating. A month later, I was spending nights at her apartment. 3 months in, I was in love. She said she liked how grounded I was, how reliable, how I made her feel safe. "You're like a lighthouse," she whispered one night, tracing her fingers along my chest. "Even when everything else is falling apart, you don't move." It sounded romantic at the time. Looking back, it was a warning. What she really meant was, you won't leave me, no matter what I do. And I didn't. Even when the cracks started forming, there were red flags. Of course there were. She lied sometimes, small things. Said she was at study group when she wasn't. Said her phone had died when she just hadn't texted. Said she was just friends with Jake, the film major who kept commenting fire emojis under every selfie she posted. I questioned it once. She flipped, cried, said I didn't trust her, said I was projecting my insecurities. I apologized. I always did. Because that's what you do when you're in love, right? You give the benefit of the doubt. You believe the best in them, even when the worst is staring you in the face. It all came to a head in the spring semester. We were working on a joint research project, her idea. It was ambitious, mapping emotional intelligence to behavioral data sets for our neuroscience practicum. She said she wanted to do it with me because she believed in me. Said we get it published. Said it would set us up for grad school. I poured everything into that paper. Hours, days, weekends. I wrote the abstract, built the neural models, ran the simulations. She handled the visual design and final formatting. We submitted it as co-authors. 2 weeks later, the paper was accepted for presentation at the National Cognitive Science Symposium in New York. It was one of the top 5 student papers in the country. I was stunned, excited. Marissa barely reacted. "Told you," she said, texting while I stared at the acceptance email. "We killed it." But I didn't know. I didn't know what she'd done. Not yet. That came after the symposium. After the applause. After she took the stage alone. There's a kind of silence that comes after betrayal. It's not loud. Not explosive. It's hollow, like the space between thunder and the moment you realize the lightning struck you. I sat in the front row of the symposium in New York, holding my notes, sweating slightly in my blazer. I'd memorized every line of the presentation, every data point, every word. Marissa wasn't nervous. She was laughing backstage 15 minutes earlier, flirting with some dude from MIT. She kissed me on the cheek before walking out and said, "Don't worry, babe. I've got this." That was the last time I believed her. The screen lit up with our title slide. Neurological Correlates of Emotional Maturity in Emerging Adults. Underneath it, by Marissa Hale. No, Evan Maddox. No me. I blinked. I thought it was a mistake. A formatting error. Maybe she'd fix it with her opening. But she didn't. She started talking, smooth and confident, like she'd rehearsed it 1,000 times, which was funny, because she hadn't rehearsed with me once. She went through the introduction flawlessly. Then the methods, my statistical models, my neural net code. She walked the audience through everything I'd built, like it was hers. Not once did she mention my name. Not once. I remember gripping the edge of my seat, heart hammering so loud I couldn't hear half of what she said. I looked around, hoping anyone, would notice something was wrong. No one did. They clapped. They smiled. They nodded, impressed. When she finished, a panelist from Stanford asked, "Did you work on this alone? The scope seems wide for a single student." She paused, smiled. "Well, I had help conceptualizing some parts, but the execution and data modeling were entirely my own." I couldn't breathe. She walked off stage to a standing ovation, and I just sat there, still, like a ghost inside my own life. I confronted her in the lobby of the hotel later that night. She was with a group of people from the conference, chatting, laughing, glowing. When she saw me, her smile faltered. "Evan," she said quickly, stepping away from them, "can we talk somewhere else?" I didn't let her move. I pulled out my phone and showed her the program where my name was missing. Then I showed her the copy of our paper she submitted. She'd edited the final version, removed my name entirely. And she hadn't told me. Not once. Not even when we got accepted. Not even when we flew to New York together. "You submitted it without me," I said, voice low. "You stole everything we worked on and presented it like you did it alone." She glanced around nervously. "Evan, you're making a scene. You made a career off of my work." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "Look, you helped, okay? But I pulled it all together. The formatting, the design, the presentation, it wouldn't have been accepted without me. That doesn't justify taking my name off it." She didn't answer for a second. Then, "You're too sensitive. You always do this. You need so much credit for everything." My hands were shaking. "You lied to me. I made a strategic decision." Her exact words. A strategic decision. I walked out of the hotel that night, wandered aimlessly around Manhattan, still in my blazer and dress shoes, no idea where I was going. I ended up on some bench near Times Square at 2 a.m., surrounded by noise and light and strangers. And I cried. I cried because the person I loved, the person I defended, trusted, gave everything to, had looked me in the eye and erased me. When I got back to the university 2 days later, I filed a formal complaint with the Academic Ethics Board. They launched an investigation. Marissa denied everything. She said I exaggerated my contributions. Said I was a bitter ex, said I was trying to ruin her chances out of jealousy. She had emails, messages, text chains cut out of context to make it look like I was unstable. She weaponized my own loyalty against me. In the end, they gave her a warning. A warning. The paper stood. Her presentation stood. My work was gone. Just like that. A month later, she got offered a summer research position in Boston. Prestigious. Paid. I saw the post on her LinkedIn. She used our project as her portfolio. And me? I stayed behind, bitter and sleepless, finishing finals with bags under my eyes and a GPA that dropped because I couldn't concentrate anymore. My professors said I seemed disengaged. How do you explain to someone that your reality cracked open and everything you believed about someone, about yourself, turned out to be a lie? But the worst part wasn't that she stole my work. It wasn't even that she humiliated me. It was that I still missed her. Every damn night, I still stared at my phone, hoping she'd text, that she'd apologize, that she'd say something, anything that would make me believe she was the girl I fell in love with again. But she never did. That version of her was dead, if she even existed at all. I didn't talk to Marissa again after that day in the hotel lobby. I blocked her number, deleted our old photos, muted her social media. But that doesn't mean I stopped watching. That's the twisted thing about heartbreak. It makes you into something you don't recognize. A quiet stalker of your own past. A hostage to your own curiosity. And I was desperate to know if she felt even a flicker of guilt. She didn't. Her Instagram filled with smiling shots from Boston, fancy lattes and lab coats, selfies with professors, group photos at Harvard mixers. Captions like, "Hard work pays off. Flexed biceps, #grind mode, #research life." Every time I saw her face, something inside me twisted. A dry, acidic knot in my stomach. But I told myself it was over, that I'd survived the worst of it. I was wrong. It started with a message request from an unfamiliar name, Chloe L. At first, I thought it was spam, but the message wasn't generic. "Hey Evan, this is random, but did you date Marissa Hale last year?" I hesitated. "Yeah. Why?" Her reply came instantly. "I think she used your name to get a private grant. She said you were her recommender for the Sloan Neuroscience Fellowship. Did you actually write her anything?" No, I did not." My heart stopped. I asked Chloe how she knew. She said she was a fellow applicant. They'd been in the same finalist cohort. One of the committee members had casually mentioned how Marissa's partner, Evan Maddox, wrote an extremely compelling endorsement, the kind that speaks from inside the work. Chloe, being a neuroscience grad student herself, had read my published undergrad paper in a journal last year. She recognized my name, and she thought something felt off. I logged into my old email, the one tied to our joint research documents, and there it was, in the sent folder. A perfectly forged letter, typed in my voice, my tone, even signed with my full name and fake credentials, Evan Maddox, Research Associate, Cognitive Modeling Lab. The date on the email? 2 weeks after we broke up. She had hacked in, impersonated me, used my name to secure a $25,000 research grant. She didn't just erase me. She wore me like a mask. I stared at the screen for a long time. I was trembling. My chest was burning. It wasn't even rage yet, just shock. A cold, creeping kind that wrapped around your lungs. And then, the rage hit. I printed the letter. Every page of the email chain. Screenshots. Metadata. I put together a full report and went straight to the department head. The fallout wasn't quiet this time. Forgery. Identity fraud. Academic misconduct. Grant misuse. An investigation was launched again, but this time with more weight. More eyes. Legal oversight. Marissa was pulled from the Boston program 2 weeks before the final project was due. Her grant was revoked. Her research profile blacklisted. The professor overseeing her summer post withdrew his endorsement and issued a statement condemning her actions. And for the first time since this all began, she reached out to me. A week after everything collapsed, I got a voicemail. Her voice was small, shaky. Evan, I know I messed up. I know I ruined things. I'm so sorry. You were the only real thing in my life, and I killed it. I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted you to know that I miss you. I think about you every day. I hate who I became. I played that message a dozen times. And each time, I felt a different emotion. Fury, grief, vindication, confusion. Because part of me still remembered her lips on my shoulder at 3 a.m. while she whispered about our future. Part of me still saw the girl who smiled when I laughed too hard. Who kissed my eyelids when I got migraines. Who used to hum when she washed dishes in my hoodie. But I knew the truth now. That girl wasn't real. She was a performance. And I was just another member of the audience. Later that month, someone in the program anonymously published an expose on academic misconduct in elite research circles. Marissa's story was central. She became a quiet cautionary tale, a whispered name behind closed doors. She didn't get expelled, her family had lawyers, but her academic career was over. Just like that. And me? I started over. I got a part-time job at a research lab in California. Small team. Honest work. No glamour. No spotlights. But real. And after months of silence, I finally replied to her voicemail with a single text. You didn't just lie to them. You let me build a life around a version of you that never existed. That's the kind of theft no investigation will ever document. She never responded. California was quieter. Not in the literal sense. LA traffic still honked like hell and the walls of my apartment were paper thin, but in the space between my thoughts. That inner scream I'd carried since Boston began to dull. I was working nights at a neurolab run by Dr. Mehta, a professor who didn't care about prestige or polished grant proposals. She hired based on obsession, the kind of hungry curiosity that drove people to lose sleep over one question. It was good work. Clean work. We studied dream mapping, tracing synaptic bursts during REM to model emotional signatures. Ironic, really. I was using science to map feelings, while still being completely lost inside my own. That's when I met Nina. She wasn't like Marissa. Where Marissa walked into a room like a headline, Nina slipped in like a footnote, quiet, observant, sharp-eyed. She was a visiting tech from UC San Diego, helping us rewire some of the deep-wave EEG equipment. And she didn't talk much at first, but she noticed things. Like how I always paused when someone asked about my previous research. How I flinched whenever anyone mentioned Harvard. How I touched the same spot on my wrist when I was spiraling, the one where Marissa used to draw little circles with her thumb. We started getting lunch together in the courtyard. At first, it was mostly science talk. But slowly, things opened up. She told me about growing up with a single mom and a twin brother with epilepsy. About how she was constantly torn between medicine and engineering. About the professor who once told her she was too emotionally reactive to handle real science. I liked her laugh. It was crooked and sudden, like it caught her off guard. I liked how she never tried to fix me when I hesitated. She just waited. And one day, she said something I'll never forget. You know, you hold yourself like someone waiting for the floor to collapse again. Has it ever not? I didn't answer, but the look on my face must have said enough. One night, I invited her over to help me sort data logs. It wasn't a date, but it wasn't not one either. We worked side by side, the glow of my laptop washing our faces in flickering blue light. Somewhere between alpha wave anomalies and coffee breaks, she leaned her head on my shoulder. Not in a flirty way. More like safe. Like she wasn't trying to seduce me. Like she just trusted me. And I froze. Not because I didn't like it. I did. But because every neuron in my body screamed, this is how it starts. This is how you fall again. And I couldn't let that happen. I pulled away. Stood up. Started pacing. Nina looked up, confused. Did I do something wrong? I shook my head. No, it's not you. It's me. I have baggage. From Boston. She waited. Said nothing. So I told her. All of it. The fake recommendation letter. The stolen identity. The voicemail. The grief that kept shifting forms, sometimes sadness, sometimes hate, sometimes nothing at all. When I finished, she was quiet. Then she said, Evan, I'm not her. But I'm also not here to rescue you from her. And that hit harder than any pity ever could. I didn't kiss her that night. We just sat on the couch, side by side, two people who'd both been bruised by the world, trying not to bleed on each other. But something shifted. For the first time since Marissa, I didn't feel like I had to watch my own heart like a crime scene. Weeks passed. Nina and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully. No labels. No pressure. She helped me remember what it felt like to talk without calculation. To be heard without being studied. To sleep without rehearsing arguments I'd never win. But healing is rarely clean. Because just when things started feeling okay again, Marissa came back. Not physically, not yet. But in a different, more dangerous way. I got an email from Harvard's ethics office. We're reaching out for a formal deposition regarding the Marissa Hale investigation. Additional claims have surfaced involving intellectual property disputes related to research drafts shared between you two during your time as collaborators. Please confirm your availability. What the hell? I opened the attached file. It was my early prototype from our memory recalibration model, but renamed, rewritten slightly, filed under Marissa's name. She was trying to steal my work again. After everything. After being caught, blacklisted, humiliated, she still wasn't done. Still not finished gutting whatever was left of me. I stared at the document. My hands clenched. My chest hollowed. And suddenly, all the old wounds split open again. The shame. The betrayal. The fury. I wasn't ready for this. Not again. Not when I'd just begun to breathe. Nina was out of town at a conference that weekend. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat in that apartment for hours, staring at my screen, my mind unraveling, because I realized something. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what she'd made me become. I didn't sleep the night I got the email. I kept rereading that document, line by stolen line, tracing the bones of my own work under her name. She hadn't even changed the neural indexing format. She just reworded the headers, filed it under a new title, and submitted it to a biotech startup with venture backing. She wasn't trying to salvage her reputation. She was trying to reinvent herself with my mind as the blueprint. And I couldn't decide what was worse. That she was still doing this, or that part of me wasn't even surprised. The next day, I filed the deposition request. I attached every timestamped file I had, every original version, every Slack message, every email, every voice memo. I detailed how she gained access to my private drafts, how she redirected early credit to herself during our joint research, and how she circumvented multiple university policies to cover it all up. The Harvard investigator, a man named Dr. Colin Avery, scheduled a remote session. You do understand, he said, adjusting his glasses during our Zoom call, that this could lead to civil litigation, possibly criminal. I do, and that it could permanently blacklist her from future academic opportunities. I know. Do you want that? I paused. I stared at my own face on the screen. Gaunt, tired, but finally honest. No, I don't want anything anymore. I just want the truth to exist in the world, even if it comes too late to fix me. He nodded. Then let's make sure it does. That night, I finally called Nina. I told her everything. How Marissa had reemerged, how she tried again to steal my work, to rewrite not just our past, but her future too. I told her about the deposition, the documents, the hearing next month. There was a long silence on the line. I braced myself for pity, judgment, or worse, fear. But Nina just said, "Good. You deserve your name back." And maybe that was all I needed. The weeks that followed were brutal. Marissa's team responded with a cease and desist order, claiming my drafts were derivative of her conceptual framework. It was complete fiction, but it was well-written fiction, and rich fiction, backed by lawyers with names I couldn't even pronounce. I almost gave up, until, one night, I got a call from someone unexpected. Connor, her ex-boyfriend, the one she dumped to date me. His voice was scratchy, uncertain. "Look, man, I know we don't talk. We were never friends, but I saw some stuff that might help you. Back in senior year, when she was applying to postgrad fellowships, she used your name a lot. Said she was co-authoring something with you, even before you agreed. I always thought it was weird, but I didn't want to get in the middle. Why are you calling now?" "Because I saw her LinkedIn. She's listing herself as lead developer of your prototype. And for some reason, that just hit different. Like, I finally saw it." He emailed me old screenshots, forwarded messages she'd sent him about leveraging Evan's codebase while I was still in Boston. They were time-stamped. Concrete. They cracked the case wide open. At the hearing, Marissa didn't show up in person. She sent her lawyers. But her silence said more than any defense could. The panel reviewed the evidence. They issued a formal academic censure, notified the biotech startup of the fraud, and recommended that all publishing rights associated with the stolen work be returned to me. It was over. She was done. Not arrested. Not humiliated publicly. But finally, undeniably exposed. I walked home that day with a kind of peace I didn't recognize. Not joy. Not victory. Just quiet. Like I had spent years living under this massive, invisible weight, and suddenly, the ground beneath me didn't feel like glass anymore. Nina was waiting for me at my apartment. She didn't say anything. She just stood up when I walked in, looked at my face, and pulled me into a long, steady hug. We didn't talk about the trial, or Marissa, or any of it. Instead, we sat on the floor and talked about the future, about publishing our own paper together, about maybe teaching, about maybe leaving California someday, starting over in a quieter place with less noise, less weight. I've accepted that I may never fully heal, that some nights I'll still dream of her voice, the one that said she loved me while rewriting my life beneath me. But I also know this. I am more than what she did, and I am no longer afraid of the truth, because I lived in her life for too long, and now I'm ready to live in mine. The honest one, the real one, the one she'll never be part of again.